Welcome back. This time we're talking about Zoolander 2, the sequel to the 2001 Ben Stiller comedy set in the world of really stupid male models. Zoolander 2 is really one of those sequels that I don't think anyone was expecting and pretty much no one was asking for. But sometimes that can work out. In the 15 years since the original movie, I'd honestly forgotten just about everything about it except that I laughed a lot. So before heading out to see the sequel, I went and rewatched the original and realized I'd actually forgotten just how funny it is. Yeah, there's a lot of dumb jokes, a lot of stupid humor, but really it's actually got a decent bit of smart satire about the fashion industry and about modeling in general. And it really was just a lot of fun. So I was actually kind of psyched and looking forward to seeing the sequel after watching the original. Well, does the sequel live up to its predecessor? Unfortunately, no it doesn't. Honestly, it's a complete mess of a movie. The script, which is co-written by Stiller, never really seems to figure out what it wants to be. What kind of movie does Zoolander 2 want to be? And every time you think you realize, oh, okay, this is what it's going to be, it changes its mind. It's got the attention span of a toddler. And that results in some terrible pacing and just a lot of wasted potential, really. It really just feels like they tried to throw in as many jokes as they possibly could and to see what stuck. And actually, a lot of it did. And that's the kind of the paradox about this movie. It's not a good movie. It's not even a decent movie, really, if you want to be honest about it. But I laughed a lot. I laughed a lot, except for some of the early moments in the first act, which really did drag. I really enjoyed and had a decent time with this. I didn't feel good about it. There are those movies where you're laughing and you're going, I really shouldn't be laughing at this. They didn't try hard enough to get me to laugh. But sometimes it happens, and this is just one of those cases. So what kind of zany adventures are Derek, Zoolander, and friends getting into this time? Well, we quickly learn that Derek suffered a personal tragedy shortly after the first movie, and has basically been living in seclusion for the last decade or so. He probably would have still been there, but a friend tries to coax him into getting back into the world and reclaiming his career. And he kind of gets it in his head that if he revitalizes his career and once again becomes a world-famous model, he might be able to reconnect with his son, who he hasn't seen in many years. So that's sort of the plot, if there is, to kind of set things into motion. This leads him to Paris, where one of the new hip fashion designers is about to put on a show and wants Derek to model. There he meets Hansel, played by Owen Wilson, and they kind of reconnect. We find out that there's some things that have happened between the movies that have kind of set them on different paths, and they have to reconnect, and again, you think, okay, well, that's where the movie's going, and then it changes its mind again. And then we have some moments where Derek and Hansel are kind of dealing with the fact they're completely out of the loop of current pop culture since they've basically been in seclusion since the early 2000s. And so we have this kind of fish out of water sequence. And that goes on for a while, and frankly, it's one of the least successful parts of the movie. And then, of course, pretty soon, the story changes its mind again, and we have a whole international conspiracy of people trying to knock off pop stars. We have the Interpol Fashion Police, with an investigator played by Penelope Cruz, the new female lead in this movie. And then we have Mugato, played by Will Ferrell. He comes back to get revenge on Derek for foiling his plot in the first movie. And then we have an ancient prophecy about the world's first model that ties into the Garden of Eden. And then there's this cult, and yeah. And of course, Derek's still trying to reconnect with his son. So there's a lot going on in this movie, and if you think it gets cluttered, it actually doesn't, because it never pays attention to any one storyline for very long before it jumps on to the next one. So it's more of a successive series of stories than it is an actual whole. All the storylines are trying to happen at the same time, if that makes any sense. But yeah, this is like I said, it's a mess of a movie. But I did laugh a lot. There's some decent callbacks to the originals. We once again get a bunch of cameos. Ben Stiller must have a lot of friends because he got a lot of people to do some kind of stupid things. Again, the whole idea of throw everything you can at the wall. If enough of it sticks, people laugh. And that was basically the case on this. I will mention that, you know, the first movie, even when at its most zany, did feel like it was at least semi-grounded in the real world. Of course, you know, we have the finale sequence with Derek stopping a throwing star with a look. But that's about as crazy as it gets. Here, the chains are off. They just, if they think it might be funny, they throw it in, whether it makes sense in the world that the first movie created or not, doesn't matter. And again, the satire of the first movie is just, it's not there anymore. It's or it's not as smart, I guess. For example, we meet a former swimsuit model. And we didn't meet a lot of female models in the first movie, so there was some potential to see what they were going to do with this. Here, turns out, swimsuit models are basically like mermaids. And let's have fun with that. So that's some of the, you know, the stupider things in this movie. But again, like I said, it is a lot of fun. So I mean, so there's not a whole lot I can say about Zoolander 2. It is what it is. But so basically, it's got a mess of the script. It never really can figure out exactly what it wants to be. Rapid fire jokes, a lot of them don't hit. More of them actually do. And I think that's really going to be the deciding factor whether you like this movie or not, is the percentage of the jokes that actually hit. For me, for whatever reason, a high percentage of them hit. So I actually enjoy this movie more than I would have thought, considering its many, many flaws. So as I said in my first video, I'm going to be trying to use a ranking system in my YouTube reviews, and basically it goes from 0 to 5 marks. Might as well use my name. And this is one of those movies that explains why I have never used a ranking system before. Because how do you rank a movie that's not good at all, but still made me laugh? So I was thinking about it, and if I was trying to grade this movie as a movie on a 0 to 5, I'd probably give it a 2. Now the enjoyment factor, the fact that I did laugh a lot, I would probably give it a 3. So here we go. We're going to split the difference, and Zoolander 2, 2.5 marks. So if you've seen Zoolander 2, throw a comment down and tell me what you thought about it, whether you agree or not with my assessment. And if you'd like, you can subscribe, and there'll be more videos to come. Thank you again for tuning in.